Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Great morning to be here again at this fantastic conference, the Hub in Berlin. You know, in fact, I was checking. It was about 9 years ago. I went to visit my youngest daughter in Paris, and she said to me, "Hey, Dad, there's this really cool application." I don't actually think she used the word application. She said, "There's this really cool application in Paris. It's called Deezer, and it means I can listen to music anytime I want for free." I said, "Wow, that's great. Can we listen to some Joni Mitchell or James Taylor?" And she, no, it doesn't have actually that music. You know, it actually only had quite a limited catalogue at the time. And yet here we are today with the Chief International Officer of that same company, Deezer, who today are in 182 countries. I think that is almost every country apart from North Korea. They have the largest music catalogue of any independent audio streaming service in the world. And independent is a key word, I think, in Deezer's, in what you need to know about Deezer. And the other thing I think is quite remarkable is that over 3/4 of their revenue goes back to the creative industries. Although I think you're a creative industry yourself, Michael. So I have with me Michael Krause, who is the Chief International Officer of Deezer. And he joined Deezer about 3 years ago when the company that he founded, he sold to Deezer. Why did you do that, Michael? What did you see was the opportunity with Deezer?
Actually, I was looking at the product landscape and comparing our product that we were able to kickstart back in the days, and we saw that Deezer was much more advanced in terms of product. So actually, I went to Deezer and said, "Can I just license your product because you're not that big in Germany?" And we were only live in Germany, Switzerland, Austria. So I wanted to license their product actually, and they said, "It's a cool idea, but we rather buy your company because you have a great distribution deal with Vodafone, and you're belonging to a TV network, and we want to get some space on the TV network." So it turned out that from licensing the product, it went to an equity case, and Deezer took over the company.
And you got a new CEO about 18 months ago. What do you think he saw as the big attraction of the company? What's the vision either that he brought or that he bought into?
Yeah, so Hans Holger is actually coming from the telco industry, so he was working for the Bitkom group, heading that up with over 50 million customers, and we had a very good cooperation with Bitkom already in many countries, like Tigo in Colombia and parts of their group. And he had a background in pay TV, so also these kind of subscription models were not new to him. And he was just excited about Deezer being in the digital space and working with all the kind of companies that he was working for in his past, like media companies, like telcos, even the automotive industry, where he used to work in as well. Okay. So that's something that really inspired him and said, okay, that's really a good space to work in. It's very
okay. And earlier this year, I think it was earlier this year, you guys raised 100 million euros. That's great to have 100 million euros. What are you going to spend all that on, Michael?
Luxury cars,
quite.
the usual stuff. No, it was really, really important for us because obviously, you know, the space in music streaming is quite crowded. More and more companies come in, which is actually an honor because when Spotify and us, we started, there was only independent companies, and now all the big ones come in, which is showing that the model is actually the right one, and that is something that will remain in the future and be the dominant way to consume music. So obviously, in this kind of space where it's getting more and more crowded and competitive, we need that money mainly to invest in marketing.
Invest in marketing, that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
So it's not more technical development.
I mean, on the technical side,
you're quite innovative on marketing here in Germany, aren't you? I mean, for example, we've all seen things, advertising and promoting your service here in Berlin.
Yeah, I mean, I think we took an interesting route because all of the digital companies usually go only digital when it comes to marketing, so they acquire customers on the internet mainly, which makes sense and is very natural. But we took another route. We started with TV advertisements 2.5 years ago. Which really worked out well for us. So the acquisition cost for us in TV was more or less the same than in online, and it was a much broader audience that we could reach. And we could also emotionalize the brand much better, so that in the online acquisition, things got much easier, because people would recognize our brand. Also in terms of partnerships, it was very helpful, because if you're strong on TV, then more and more partners tend to recognize you and actively coming to you. So you don't, I mean, my job is also business development and partnerships globally. So it's actually something which is helping me a lot in all the countries where we do TV advertisements. It's much easier, of course, to work with partners. Not only because you can create cool co-marketing concepts on TV, but also because you're just like, it's a different entry point, it's more eye-to-eye level if you're also in that TV space like your partners. So that's definitely something. And in the online world, I mean, I think the keyword music streaming is on Google is actually the most bid for in the music space currently, because all the new ones coming in with a huge, and then Google even have their own streaming service, so they, so this is kind of our, we're very agile, and we try to seek for routes in marketing which the others haven't taken yet.
Let's dig into the markets a little bit. One of the, it's well worth understanding that here we have a French company that has gone global, and a French new tech media company that's really gone global in quite a short space of time. And as I understand it, Michael, your responsibilities are international, which means not France and not the Americas, because time zone issues in the Americas. But you have the rest of the world. And in a moment, I want to come on to the European markets particularly, because I think this session, we want to focus a little bit more on European growth. But I'd be interested in your take on the markets. I mean, when you think about the markets, so we can leave US to one side if you wish, and you can leave France to one side, but when you think about the markets that you cover, how do you segment them in your head, and how do you think about the different behaviors in the different markets?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, the music markets, the big music markets back in the old days were obviously US, Japan, UK, and Germany. So in terms of Europe, UK and Germany are obviously the largest countries or largest music markets to convert from CD sales and mobile downloads or MP3 downloads to streaming. The interesting thing about the European market is that in the Scandinavian areas, where also our competition started, actually the penetration of paid music streaming is already over 20%. But if you look at the other markets like Germany, even the UK, which is a bit stronger than Germany, but also France, the penetration of paid music streaming services is still around 3 to 4%. So there's a lot of room for growth. So currently, we're not even competing actually with Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, and the others to kind of steal users from each other, because we are looking for the untapped users, those who are still downloading MP3s, those who are still buying CDs. And for example, in Germany, which is a very large physical market, over 60% of the revenues still come from CD sales. Yeah. So there's obviously a big potential to convert further users into music streaming. I mean, for example, in Germany, we grew faster than the market. So last year, we grew 350%, and the market was growing 106%. So much faster than the market, which is great. But overall, the market is kind of accelerating now so fast. So the growth is only continuing, and our main aim is, of course, also with that funding money to get a chunk of that and to convert them to happy users.
So that's why you want to spend the money on the marketing, really, so that you can continue to maintain an unfair share of the market as you grow. And you know, we were talking earlier, and I mentioned that over 20 years ago now, I ran a business that allowed musicians to play together online. It was a virtual recording studio, and I had to move that business to San Francisco because, frankly, it was the only place in the world at the time that anybody had any idea what you were talking about. I mean, it was really quite sad in a way. But I get the sense that well, from what you've said, that's really moved on now. And I mean, how do you find the European market generally? And I have a sort of follow-up question to that, which is it right to describe it as a European market, or in fact is there a German market, a French market, a UK market?
In terms of, there's different ways to look at it. In general, the European market is very good for us. I mean, it has very good internet penetration. There's good smartphone penetration, which is important for us, because 94% of all users we get in are coming from their mobile phones. So it's a very mobile business, mobile-oriented business. Also 80% of our users are streaming on their mobile phone. So that's great. So Europe is a very good environment to do business in. Are those different markets? Yes, I'd say so, because in terms of partnerships that we do, in terms of TV advertisements that we do, in terms of also licenses that we have to buy sometimes, it's still very local. So in Germany, you have to have a license from the Collection Society GEMA. In France, you have to have the SACEM. So it's more or less kind of local markets, and there's not many synergies in operating in different markets, to be honest. But on the other side, all markets itself are large enough to allow focusing on them. At least like France, where we are by far market leader, Germany, where we're doing very well, probably number 2nd in terms of reach, and UK, which we're also very strong in. But also the Eastern European markets are getting more and more exciting, by the way.
Yeah.
So we have partnerships in most of the European countries, so local teams on the ground in most of them, and they're starting to grow as well. So they're starting to become more important as well.
It's interesting. I spend most of my time in Brussels running the Tech Industry Association there, pressing European policymakers to really drive forward on what they call the internal market, but the single market for Europe, to try and make it more of an internal market. Because at a very headline level, what we see is that companies like yours, when you compare it to, say, an independent company growing in the States, a company like yours, it doesn't really have a European market to go at. It has a French market, a German market,
right,
and so on. And every time you move into a new market, you have to learn new things, as you said, right, learn new people to negotiate with and learn the local customs. Whereas in the US, you go and it's more or less the same. It's not the same, but it's more or less the same throughout the US. So we push a lot on policymakers over time to try and reduce that fragmentation. Do you see any evidence of that playing out? Is it getting any easier or not really?
I mean, there are some cross-European licensing initiatives in Europe which are helping us. On the operator side, it's also that, there are some groups, like the Vodafone Group, the Orange Group, but they tend to be very localized in their partnerships, so that's probably one topic we can also talk about, partnerships. Yeah. It's really, again, market by market. So there is no real big European market in that way, and we don't feel currently that there would be a big benefit of having more centralization or like a more unified European market. We have to see what Brexit and the UK developments will bring to us, if there's further complications, but that's not really set in stone yet. So not sure what to expect.
Definitely not set in stone yet. No, definitely, yeah. But it's going to be a mess, whichever way it goes. Before we move on to partnerships, and I would like to talk about partnerships in a moment, any other market characteristics or market features from around the world that you've seen? So you're dealing with China as a market, are you?
Yeah, the Asian markets are, of course, interesting. The big potential is still, for example, in Japan, which is kind of a very physical market as well, so over 70% revenues from CD sales or CD rental as well. There are also companies who rent CDs and having 15 million of customers actively every month. So there's a lot of potential there. We also have good partnerships in Indonesia or Thailand. So all those Southern Asian markets are also very interesting. So but there's potential, definitely.
There's potential.
But currently, like with the investment as well, we're focusing on. Mainly we're focusing on selected European markets. And also because content-wise, we're very well set up in Europe. We have also not only music, but also audiobooks. We have live soccer streams from the Bundesliga, from the UK Premier League. We're doing partnerships with local soccer clubs in Europe. So that's something where we can stand out against the competition as well in terms of content. And of course, in Asia, we have the local content, but we don't have kind of the big forces there to really stand out or to really make a difference in terms of the catalogs. So we're just the same as the others as well. So we have an unfair advantage in the European markets. Like, for example, Amazon was launching their streaming service without audiobooks because they have Audible. So they're always in the big companies. There are a lot of obstacles that you have to come across. We, as an independent company, can just do what we want. So we license also the audiobooks into our service. So this is why Europe is a very...
And are you finding that in the European markets that is a really significant differentiator, that you have these other services that you can offer, like audiobooks and like soccer streaming and so on? Are you able to tell that that's a big differentiator, that customers are coming to you because of that?
Yeah, sure. We evaluate the features that we have constantly, so we ask customers and we do market research. And audiobooks, we can see from the usage, which is already a double-digit figure of usage. So that's definitely really being used a lot, especially in Germany. Those audio plays for kids are very successful. So it's been used by the customers, and also if we ask them about perceived values or perceived value of our service, then stuff like lyrics that we have, like karaoke lyrics, but also audiobooks, and even soccer is kind of important to customers.
Let's move on for our last 5 minutes or so and talk about partner relationships, because and we can include maybe the creative industry, the relationships you have there. I remember it must have been about a dozen years ago, the British government asked me if I would lead a study looking at new business models for the creative industries.
Right.
And there was a huge degree of suspicion from the creative industries about companies like yours,
right,
who were, they were cannibalizing their market, they were going to reduce the revenues they're getting, and yet now, 10 years later, we seem to have cracked that to some extent. The creative industries, the big record labels, they understand that companies like yours are a good thing. I mean, how's that? What are your relationships with those guys?
Yeah, I mean,
like?
You're right. In the beginning, it was kind of hard. So the Swedish Daniel had to launch in a market which was actually already bankrupt in terms of music. So there was no music industry alive. So that was easy to start there. We started in France, but kind of starting without all the licenses in the beginning, and then labels come on board like a bit later. So we both had our obstacles and hurdles in the beginning, but now you can see that the revenue percentage from the big major labels are already, the major part comes from streaming, even though the markets are not having the full percentage yet. But Universal...
So is that right? The largest part of the record labels' revenues are coming from streaming?
Yeah, in the US already, yeah,
wow.
for all of them. So streaming is already cracking that, and we also see that the payout for artists from the record labels is bigger than on the CD side, which is an urban myth that artists are not getting money. I mean, of course, it depends on their contracts with the record labels, but like for example, in Sweden, they did a study that while the market was growing 45%, the payouts to artists was growing to 111%. So definitely good for the artists as well. So now it's easy. Now we are kind of the chosen one, so it's easy to work with the partners. But in the beginning was a hurdle. They were skeptical in the beginning, which of course is with a big physical market like Germany, I can even understand it in a way.
Yeah, I remember back to my days when we were setting up this online recording studio. The lawyers from the record labels were, looking at us like hawks in case we, in any way, did anything to undermine their copyright. You've got, though, of course, a wider set of partners that you deal with, including operators, network operators, telcos, but also, I think, device manufacturers, phone manufacturers, and other. Tell us a little bit about those sorts of relationships.
Yeah, that's, again, our challenge, but also our beauty of being agile and independent. So we do a lot of partnerships. So we do unusual marketing routes, like the TV campaigns that we do. But we also do a lot of partnerships. We have a nice API. We have even a co-branded solution for partners. So we have telco partnerships in over 50 countries. But we also start more and more like hardware manufacturers, like with, of course, the audio manufacturers like Sonos, Bose, and Harman Kardon, but also with phone manufacturers. We have a partnership with Samsung since 3 years. So every Samsung customer gets 3 months of Deezer for free, for example. We have a pre-installment partnership with Huawei and Honor. But we also kind of take it to another level. For example, in Germany, we just launched with a food retailer called Lidl. Wow. So we even go beyond the hardcore tech companies. And,
so would you get Deezer with every tin of baked beans or something? I mean, how does that work?
Starting on that working on that bundle. Currently, it's just like you can walk to the store and you can get a Deezer prepaid card for a discount price. So they did the same strategy like with Coca-Cola or Red Bull.
Okay.
They bought like a portion and then they sell it for a reduced price, which is working out well. So we're really kind of trying to be creative in the way we partner with third parties, and that is proven. And we did an IPO preparation as well, and you could see in our numbers that a large portion of our users is coming from partnerships. So it's definitely something that is important for our strategy.
One thing I see for many small tech companies is
small.
Yeah, but I mean, for these guys in the audience, particularly if they're a small partner, not for you. But for many small companies, is to get that partnership strategy right. So you now, as a big company, what would your do you have some advice about how you approach those partnerships or?
Flexible. What we try to do in all those kind of partnerships discussions is to find out the motivation of our partners. Is it like a retention tool? Is music like retention? Do they need differentiation because they have a quite generic product like a network or like an electricity company or whatever? So that can be one reason. Do they just need cool musicians to emotionalize their brand? Is it about brand perception that they want to raise? Is it about gaining new customers as an acquisition tool, where they say every new customer will get 12 months of Deezer Premium Plus for free? So we have like different models, so we can be very flexible and go to a meeting and say, what is your need? What do you want to achieve? And then we can adapt accordingly. And then also on the technical side, we're very flexible. So as I said, we have this API. So even customers like Vodafone, they would do, or partners like Vodafone, they would bill their customers on their backend, on their telco bill. And then we have an API where they just activate the accounts in our backend. Right. So it's like their customers, actually.
It's like their customers. Do you know the thing I'm most looking forward to is going back to my daughter and saying, do you remember that cool thing you told me about in Paris? Well, let me bring you up to date. I think we'd all want to say thank you very much to Michael for a very entertaining story that he's told about this fantastic French, European, and global company. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
Thank you.